Greetings and salutations, fellow questioners. Obviously, yesterday we had the whole UAP hearings by I had to write it all down. The Subcommittee on National Security, Border, and National Affairs. Um, Obviously, everyone and their dog have been talking about this, and honestly, on Tuesday, Dean and I over on Mysterious Library are going to be going far more in depth on what was said, some of the intrigues. I think he's got some really keen insight on. He he pointed out to me it was like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are right behind the speakers. You might as well have just thrown Bob Lazar up there. Unfortunately, the Why Hasn't Bob Lazar Been Epstein episode seems to have disappeared off of the internet. Nothing per se sinister behind that, unfortunately, because of the whole thing with Texas Front Porch and YouTube coming down on them for sharing content. They had to take it down. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy, so we may have to redo that. So we're going to talk about all that on Mysterious Library on Tuesday. Link to that is going to be below. Also, I don't want to go over too much about my thoughts on UFOs and even Mr. Grush himself. Again, I have the links for. I've already, Dean, and Donnie, we've talked about that sort of in depth. Again, links below. There's a couple things that people are talking about I kind of want to touch on, and then there's something I don't think that no one's really talked about that I think maybe a little bit more in revealing as to what's really going on with what, like, because everyone's asking why now. Look, I'm the first one to say we're coming up, end of the world's coming sooner rather than later. We got to move a few things along. And I do think the Antichrist and the ancient alien UFO, I think it's all going to blend together. And that's going to be a big part of it. So we got to move that agenda down the road. But this event specifically, I don't know if it's necessarily as much about that as something else. So first, I want to address one of the things a lot of people have said is that this is clearly a distraction from like Hunter Biden's issues. I don't think so. I mean, the fact that everything with his plea deal blew up yesterday, I don't think that's anything they could have foreseen to schedule these hearings on that day. So I don't think it's necessarily a distraction. I do think there's more to it, but it's not a distraction. Someone did point out, actually, a number of people pointed out that a lot of the witnesses, particularly Grush, used very Weasley words, very legalese jargon. So he never came out and said, we have aliens and we have interdimensional craft. And like, he never actually said that. It was his response to a lot of people we've found, have we captured, pilots? And he says, we have found biologics. A lot of people have pointed out that he used terms off world or off earth specifically that really he could legally and not be charged with, perjury. It could be that if you had some sort of craft that we had developed that was supposed to go into space and we had put an animal in it or something else that was biological but non-human, because he never called them pilots, and that's been thrown around a lot. And I think there's value to that observation. But I also think that within the broader context, he is clearly talking about these ideas. So I don't think we can rule all that out, that essentially they're being factual but not truthful in a lot of these revelations. Maybe, but I don't think that's going to get across what they want. Right. I just don't think that's I think he is doing what he needs to be said to, again, not go to jail. So I think that's more what that's about. Again, I would not discount the idea, though, that a lot of this effusive language, or a lot of the elusive language, is not just to keep him from going to jail for violating secret or top secret information, in so much as he may legitimately be like they're trying to paint things to what they aren't, so we perceive and interpret the situation one way, but that's not what the reality is. Factual, not truthful. Again, I think it's something we need to consider. But here's some observations that I noticed I thought were really intriguing. Everything that was talked about has been, if you're on this channel, you followed some of this to some degree, so you already know a lot of what was already said, because he wasn't really saying anything new except for a couple things. It is stated, and this is what kind of perked my ears up, and you kind of see the congressional leadership, or the congressman over the subcommittee. They didn't like their authority being challenged by the military, right? Really, the intelligence agencies. You could tell they were really bristling this idea that they were not being given everything because they have congressional oversight. There is a new breed. Sorry, I'm scratching my nose all the time. There's allergies. I have not been to the White House. You know what I mean. Anyway, there's a new breed of congressmen that have been elected over the last few years that really are looking more to. They're not, again, everyone goes along to get along, sadly, but some of them have grown a spine, and they do kind of want to retain the power they're supposed to have. You can say it's, they're not being altruistic, they're just being power hungry, fine. But the point is, they're bristling at what has been the status quo, which is, what we want, you, Congress, know what us, the military industrial complex, want you to know, and the intelligence agencies want you to know. They're bristling at that. So that's a big subtext to this whole conversation. Secondly, they really responded when he pointed out, and he calls out Boeing by name, saying that money that y'all had allocated, that you'd allocated in a lot of these bills that were supposed to be for something else, have gone into the development and workings on these systems, and supposedly reverse engineering extraterrestrial craft. Again, links below for my thoughts on that. But there was one phrase that I found really, really interesting, and it said, I want to get it very specific. So I wrote it down. Yeah, it was Mr. Moskowitz. He was talking about stealth helicopters, right? Because originally those were, remember, you were tinfoil hat, Randy tinfoil hat wearing nut job. If you thought about the black helicopters that were secret and silent. Well, it turns out they were real. We know because we used them to kill bin Laden. But he talks about unsanctioned development, or unsanctioned weapons development. That's the actual phrase he uses. And I think that's another subtext to this whole thing. I think really more than anything that was said there, that's the key we need to jump on, because I have another link below from Dr. Carol Rosen. Again, you don't have to believe her, but I do think she's worth listening to. She worked with Wernher von Braun at the end of his life. She claimed, again, I think some of this is overstated a little bit, but her basic claim was this, is that Wernher von Braun was aware that essentially, to keep funding going and to claim power for themselves, that they were going to weaponize space. And that it was going to be the Russians were going to be the first people. They were going to say, we need to fight the Russians. So Russia, then it was going to be terrorists or rogue states, asteroids, then aliens. She points out that, 2001 asteroid thing didn't happen, but satellites, anti-satellite technology did. Apparently, her claim is that Wernher von Braun did not want to weaponize space. And so these were the excuses they were going to use. Russia, terrorists, rogue states, asteroids, but you could fill in satellite for that, but then UFOs and extraterrestrials. Ronald Reagan himself talked about in the 80s, this sort of dream that he had of, if there was an invasion from outer space, that how all the Earth's nations would come together. A lot of people have wondered about that and said, hey, is he trying to tell us that they're aliens? Well, maybe, or maybe what he's doing is that was part of the plan. It was saying, hey, we got to set up this new excuse, because, and I hate to say this, because this is probably the most cynical thing I've said in a long time, and it's really dark, but why do they want to weaponize space? Why are they looking to fake this invasion? As a lot of people have alleged, Werner von Braun is saying that's going to be the excuse. We have to weaponize space, aliens. You can only kill so many innocent people to keep the paychecks going. That's it. Military-industrial complex, people. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years, Iraq, almost 20 years. We had to go to Ukraine because peace was breaking out. It's like, nope, we got to go to Ukraine. Gotta keep that money going to the politicians and to the real powers that run things, right? The globalist, these massive organizations, these multi-trillion-dollar organizations, and the military-industrial complex, it's all one thing, this deep state thing. That's where the money needs to go. Well, you can only bomb so many people. I think what we're seeing here is the reason we're seeing this and what these hearings are really about, the subtext is, yes, absolutely, there is a strange and bizarre phenomena and people are interacting. They have, but the military has spent so much time using the truly bizarre material to hide their projects, their black projects, their side projects, their development stuff, that unfortunately it's gotten to the point where now they kind of have to address it. And they're trying to, I think they need to separate their unapproved, how they say, unsanctioned weapons development in this phenomena. They're trying to separate that out because they need to hide their stuff. The problem is they can't really hide it because this new group of Congress people, they kind of like having their power. They like oversight. They like being able to get on the news and say, harumph. They like that. And so now they're face to face with the fact that, holy crap, this is not what, like, this is, y'all are stealing from us. Y'all are taking our power and our authority. They don't like this deep state telling them what they can and can't do. I think that's really what the subtext is on all of these hearings, is we're finally starting to see the official government brush up against, very publicly, the unofficial government. Again, you want my thoughts on UFOs and the whole in more nuance? Links are below. You want to hear Dr. Carol Rosen? Again, I have terrible names, that's why I write down. End link below. I do think some of her statements about, she's like, I went to China, I went to Russia. They didn't want to develop space-based weaponry. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. That's bizarrely naive. However, the idea that the United States government, and really probably others, looking to utilize a faked UFO threat in order to just create a blank check, I think she's right there. I think Werner von Braun was right on that. Because what is everyone saying? Our technology can't keep up. And by the way, if they could get here, if something could actually get here from another planet, there's nothing we could do to stop them. Straight up. What they're saying is like, our technology isn't advanced enough. What do you think the next question is going to be? Well, okay, well, how do we keep up with these interdimensional aliens or these bizarre spacecraft? How do we compete? How do we fight them? Well, for the low price of $4.5 trillion, I'm certain we can develop some weapon systems that could do this. By the way, I wouldn't even necessarily rule out that they would develop weapon systems to fight interdimensional beings. That's another episode, though. I'm going to end on this. These things are not... This is a dog and pony show, but there is real subtext here. There is legitimate subtext, and we need to be paying very close attention to what everyone's saying, because I think what we're starting to see is the unofficial government and the official government are starting to butt heads a little bit, and it's starting to get on, and they're starting to maneuver around each other. This is going to get spicy. It's going to get interesting. I'm here for it. I know you're here for it, and we'll catch y'all next time. Be good.